Terrific. So this is our social work research webinar, um, covering the fundamentals of getting started with your research, going from a topic idea or an assignment and really moving into all of the details that will be help you find successfully the quality and the type and the relevant kind of resources that you need. And I'm just going to figure out how, oh, there we go. All right, so when we're getting started, I want to go through very quickly some of the resources that we have within the library homepage and within the website to get you going, including a research starter for the social work program. Also, a list of the databases that are generally most relevant for your subject area. We're going to walk through some search strategies and some tips in how to refine your searches, and then we will get to that practice session. Wonderful. So this is a slide of the library's homepage. If you have, I'm going to assume everyone has been here, but if you haven't for any reason, the address for this is library.ollu.edu/library. It's pretty easy. Library.ollu, actually OLLUSA, pardon me, library.ollusa.edu will get you to this library homepage. And you'll see that there's a variety of options already on this front page, the one search box being very prominent. But what we're actually going to go to is underneath the one search box, there are 3 blue tabs. And the one on the right is a list of the library guides that we have available for everyone in every program. And if you click on Research Starters or the library guides, you will find yourself on this page. This includes the subject guides, as you can see here, course guides, and topic guides. And we're going to stay on subject guides. If we were to scroll through and we were on the real page, we would scroll down to social work. And this is the front page of the social work research starter. And you'll see that it has some good basic information on its front page. Perhaps most importantly, when you start to get frustrated, it has access information for both Mario Leva, my colleague, and myself. Yeah, I cut my chin off there a little bit, but and contact information for us to schedule an appointment or our email if an email is easier for you. And we are here all the time and available to answer questions or to work through a research problem with you. On the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see that there's a series of menu options here. This is a little menu. We're on the first page getting started. If we were to go to the second page, resources, what you'll see here is a list of curated databases that we have found to be most targeted and useful for the social work programs. And this is only a small snapshot of them. There are about 15 in all. And we'll get to that full list in just a moment. You'll also see as you scroll down that page that we have a variety of physical books and ebooks that are helpful in terms of covering larger issues, giving you an entree into a topic if it's not one that is familiar to you. And the long read is not always the most obvious place to go, but a chapter from a book can be a highly valuable resource in giving you a good perspective of a topic that you're working on. So we're going to move pretty quickly into the discovery process. This is the entire process, as I think of it, from the very beginning that I receive an assignment to the moment that I start writing my paper. And everything that happens in between those two moments is the discovery process, finding, knowing what to look for, knowing what questions to ask, how to frame those questions for the databases to understand them, and which databases or other kinds of sources that are best to look in to find the resources that I need. So where do you start? Well, we start with a topic. And in this situation, we have this was a topic I kind of made up for social work, and I hope it's a relevant one for you folks. Uh, a discussion of the options for assessment and intervention of elder abuse in multi-generational households. And this is probably a fairly well researched topic. And what I want to do is, once I have my assignment and I'm clear about that information, I've developed a topic like this. It can be in the form of a question, it can be in the form of a statement. It just needs to have the key elements that you are looking for in your research. And then we pull those key elements out. So starting from the beginning of the statement, we have the word assessment and intervention. And those are going to be two key words that we're going to use in our search process. Obviously, elder abuse is going to be the primary target of our search. And then we also have the variable of the multi-generational households. So those are the key elements that we are going to be using, the key words, to do the search. All of that other language that you might develop in a topic is language that a database is not necessarily going to recognize. And so the first step to a really great search process, a successful one, is to eliminate any of the unnecessary language. And I'll kind of go off on a tangent for a moment about that, which is we all use Google. We use it all the time. I use it every day. And Google answers questions. You can type in a full question, you can type in part of a question, and Google will divine or try to what it is that you're looking for and give you generally millions of results. And that's wonderful. And it's a testament to the artificial intelligence that they're developing with Google. The problem is that the World Wide Web is a vast and giant swamp of information. And Google does not differentiate between types or qualities or kinds of content. So you're just as likely, if we were to type this search in, we would be just as likely to find police footage of an arrest for this kind of mistreatment as we would be to find an article about avoiding it or an article about the actual topic, assessment and intervention. We really can't rely on the quality of those sources because many of them are going to have a reason for existing beyond the information of beyond the source of information itself. They may be trying to sell us something. They may be trying to entertain us. They may be trying to convince us of a certain point of view. So that's why Google is not great for these things. The databases will focus very narrowly on scholarly sources, and these are sources that have either been peer reviewed by other professionals in the field, or they've been looked at and assessed by a group of professional editors on the way to publication. Those are going to be more timely, more relevant, and they're in general going to contain little or no bias and fact-based evidence, all of which is required for a good scholarly source. So coming back to our topic, we have these four terms. We're going to just take one of these terms and talk a little bit about a necessary step in the search process, which is developing multiple keywords and synonyms that other authors or other experts in your field may have used to describe the same kind of content. So in this little bubble form here, we have abuse as a particular language topic. And you'll see off of that we have several other synonyms. And where did I find those? I found those in a thesaurus. And that is where I most often go at the beginning of my search, is I go to a thesaurus online and I just look for every word that seems relevant and potentially useful to me that is a synonym of the primary word I developed in my topic. In this case, because we actually had a compound term, the elder abuse, we also I'm also looking for other synonyms for elder. And any combination of these could conceivably be something that a scholar would have used in describing, instead of saying elder abuse, their title of their article and their phrasing may be something like senior neglect or grandparent harm or grandparent exploitation. It's important that we use those alternate words and phrases when we search, especially if you're not getting a lot of great hits at the very beginning, you're not getting wonderful results. And that's because not everybody uses the language the same way. Because the database is very literal, it is not as smart as Google. It will only look for the words that you're entering into it. It will not necessarily pick up those synonyms in its search. So if you type in elder abuse, it will only give you articles that mention that specific terminology. And you can miss some really wonderful and important information that way. So this is an important first step in developing your search strategy. Coming back to our homepage, we're going to go right straight into the databases. For those of you that have primarily used OneSearch, it's fine. I do use OneSearch for large and general searches, and I will limit it to just the articles tab here when I do so. But when you're doing highly focused kind of search work, it really is helpful to get into the databases themselves and choose the ones that are going to be focused on the topic you're looking for. So in this case, we go to databases and we have our A to Z list. And we're going to go to the very first one on the list. All right. And at this point, we're actually going to do that. I'm going to get out of our PowerPoint and magically go to databases. What I wanted to show you here as well, and it's much easier on the live page, is that there are these 3 tab drop-down boxes here that almost everybody ignores, including me, but they can actually be quite valuable for you if you're looking for something in particular. And one of the first values that it has is if you will hit the subject button and come down through the list, you'll see that those 15 databases I mentioned are curated right here under social work. So rather than having to dig through 108 databases, the 15 that are most relevant to your research are right here. Even within this 15, some of them are going to have more relevancy than others, but it's a much shorter search to do so. And you can see those here. So many of these are related to one another. And that's why we're going to go to Academic Search Complete as our first stopping point in our search process. So I'm already signed in. It may at that point have asked you to sign on to the OLLU databases. I want to also show you guys this is a personal trick that I have found to be very successful in shortening my research. So we are looking at a particular publisher of databases, and we're looking at one example of their database, which is Academic Search Complete. But hidden is this little jewel of a click tab right here that says choose databases. And if you guys will click that button, what you'll see is a list of all of the databases that this publisher carries that we subscribe to. So these are all of them. Now, this is not all 108 of our databases, but it is all of our EBSCO databases, if you guys can appreciate the difference between those. There's about 50 here. And what I want you to notice, if you were looking at that list of the curated ones, was that many of those curated 15 databases are here as well, including ERIC, which is one that we very often use in the social work context. There's obviously the Social Index with full text, very popular one. Family studies and race relations are often valuable resources for you guys. And if we come down here, the different psychology databases are often fruitful places to look. So my advice to you is select all. I know this little daunting note pops up. You can ignore it. I have noticed that even on a fair connection, it does not slow me down significantly. So now, of course, I'm from, like the late 90s dial-up era. So if you're used to instant communication, you may notice a difference, but I don't find it to be terrible. So here we are on the EBSCO databases. But is this where we're going to start? And the answer is not quite. When I'm working on my own research projects, and this is a highly organized but very efficient way to work through this discovery process, my recommendation to you is, as I do myself, is to open a Google document. You can also open, obviously, a Word document on your computer hard drive. And the reason I have it here is because now I can just switch quickly from tab to tab, and I can take that original topic that I had and begin to break it down by those terms that we were looking at, right? And elder abuse and multi-gen, okay? So we already knew that we saw some terminology here in the synonyms, such as seniors, elderly, okay, older, and then we had several synonyms for abuse. Intervention. Does anyone want to jump on their mic and give me a synonym for intervention within the context of social work?
How about treatments?
Love it. Treatments. And the same for assessment. Is there a synonym that pops into your mind when you think about the assessment process? Whoops. I can type, folks, I promise. What about that one? What do you guys think about that? Maybe? Maybe. Multi-generational households, we might say families, we could say extended families, right? So now I have already planned some of the terms that I'm going to use to search. And I don't have to think about options a lot at this point now. I've got them laid out in front of me. I will continue to collect other synonyms and other ideas from the database as we do our searching. The results from the database, sometimes the titles or the subject that you'll see there will suggest language that we can add to this list. But this is fine, just to have one or two synonyms for each one of these terms. And then you'll see I've already started down here with a little blank spot for my results. So now we'll go back into the databases. I think one of the things that happens when you go into search is you ask it the very specific question that you are searching for. And so we'll put in every single variable that we're looking for all at once. And what we often end up with when we do that is a very small set of results, or maybe no results. I'm sure you guys have seen the dreaded no results button. So I want to show you an example of that. All right, so we're going to do multi-generational. We'll do multi-generational households. So there it is. I had a suspicion that's what we would see. Does that mean there's nothing out there? Of course not. What it does mean is that I have focused in on too many requirements at the same time in my search. And what I want to do is thin that out a little bit and start to collect from a broader perspective some of the results that I might need. So the most obvious one to eliminate is this one. The other thing that I wanted to show you, and so this is, we had a very small, focused, narrow search, and now we're going to make it a little bigger, where it's like focusing the camera out on a larger part of the landscape. And I went back into this first one because as you type, you may have noticed on EBSCO in particular, it will suggest some of those synonyms to you. And you can see them right there. Actually, you see that whole list there. And if some of them are useful to you, you can absolutely, I mean, there is elder abuse intervention right there. But let's say we want to stick with just that single term and its synonyms, and we could choose that. Intervention, we can do the same thing. As I'm typing, you'll see, yay, there's that word treatment that you suggested. Strategies, best practices, treatment, therapy, all of those may be good synonyms for intervention. Now let's see what we get. Yay! So what we've now got is close to 10,000 results. And I always look at the health of my search by looking at the number of results I got. Now, this is a rough draft of those results. And I reassure you, and I would never myself dig through 9,687 results. That's much too big. But what I can do now is begin to refine that search and make it go back from that big view and start making it incrementally smaller to get to a number that is more manageable. Most of those refinement tools are going to be found over here on the left-hand side under Refine Results. So this is the search term we're using right here. And one of the most obvious buttons that we're going to want to click is the scholarly peer-reviewed. That is generally the gold standard for the articles that you're looking for. It is also often a requirement for some, if not all, of your sources. So that's a really good one to just check almost automatically every time. And you'll see now that that's taken about 2,500 results off of our search. So we're headed in the right direction. What is also important for searching in a science like social work is to be finding updated information. And that most often happens because of publication date. And you'll see here right now, we're going all the way back to 1976. If you were doing a history of treatment or a history of assessment, this can be really valuable to go backwards and say, what did it look like in the 90s? Or move it forward, what did it look like in the early 2000s? So it's not always something that we're going to move up and make very relevant. If you're doing historical research, that can also be highly valuable. Or let's say you want to do a then versus now kind of paper, that can also work. You can choose to go 10 years back. Most of us now are asking for 5 years back. I think your professors asked for mostly 5 years. And remembering this is becoming less relevant right now, but because 2020 was a crazy year for everybody, and 2021 is only about halfway over, for me, I consider 2015 to still be 5 years, okay? By November of this year, that won't be true anymore. It'll be 2016. But for right now, we can limit it to 2015, 2021. And you'll see we still have a huge number here. So that's too many really to look at, but let's look at one or two as examples and see how those quote top results might help us focus even further so that we're not having to dig through 2,400 results. This is my suggested process for looking at an article and whether or not it is going to be valuable to you potentially, and doing so quickly. I'm a reader, and it is very easy for me in the research process, the discovery process, to get lost in reading the very first article I find. And I'm like, ooh, wonderful information, yay. And 20 minutes later, I have spent 20 minutes of my search time on one article that may or may not be helpful to me. That's not a great use of your time. It's certainly not has not been a very successful strategy for me. Instead, I look for key information. The first one, of course, being the title of the article. Okay, so we have assessment and treatment of elder abuse in Spanish-speaking Americans. If for some reason Spanish-speaking Americans or Hispanic populations was another one of the variables I wanted to add, this would be a bullseye right off the bat. But because it focuses on Spanish-speaking Americans, that does not make it unrelevant to a larger search of multi-generational households, regardless of ethnicity. Okay, so it does fit. It would fit some better than others. I love that this has assessment and treatment within the title, because in our topic, we were talking about assessment and intervention. So we've got a really great bingo right off the bat. The next piece of information before I read the abstract is this tiny little line of information down here. Many of you you all see it, but it contains more valuable information than perhaps you've realized. And what this means when it says subjects is these are very specific words that the database understands as a heading for a whole collection of articles. So these are they're called subject headings, and this is if you want to geek out on the library part of this, these are called a controlled vocabulary. It's how we get the databases to look for information in a very focused way. So we can already see that highlighted is the formal term elder abuse. So we're doing really good here. We'll see the term intervention, and we see the term treatment. All of those are fabulous. What it also gives us is some information about the demographic that this particular study looks at, and that can also be valuable for you. Okay, particularly if you're looking for, if you're, let's say you're focusing on a study about children, or you're doing teens, or you're looking for a specific gender or ethnicity, that information will be available within those subject headings, and that can help you weed out very quickly some of the articles that are good but not relevant to your particular topic. Okay, so we've decided that this is a terrific one, and that we're going to keep it for reading later or for assessing later. So what I do is click on the title. Okay, and before I go, and this is the detailed record, and you'll see that over here. Sometimes when you click on the title, the full PDF will pop up. You'll see the whole article. I would encourage you to go over here to the left-hand side and click on the little yellow tab box, okay, and go directly to the detailed record. Again, this is a strange thing to say, but we want to avoid a lot of heavy reading at this stage because we're searching, not assessing the information quite yet. You will see the abstract here if you want to read it. A lot of the other information, including where the source was, this is the name of the journal, who the authors are, when it was written, where it was written. There's a lot of great information here. So I do two things. The first thing I do, and these are to save this search, and SOS, save our searches, is absolutely critical. I noticed that it just started raining outside, and I want you folks to know in a little story that I was working on a very important project a number of years ago. I was deep into a search. I had invested quite a bit of time into it, and uh, I got so wrapped up in the search process that I was not saving some of the really valuable results that I had been getting. I was just following the rabbit hole and reading, and I was having a great time. And the power went out.
Oh.
I lost over an hour's worth of search work and really valuable search work that I then had to replicate. And I'm not 100% certain, even to this day, that I found everything again that I had found originally. So I never want anyone to be in that situation. You always want to save your work as you go. And that's another reason for having that document. So over here under tools on the right-hand side, you'll see there are a number of ways that you can save things. The two fastest and easiest for me are first to go to the permalink. What is a permalink? It is a URL, a website address that will never ever change. The one that you see up here that is generated right now by our results, that could change. And so we never want to copy out of the search, the URL bar up here. We want to look for this permanent link. It can also be listed as a DOI. And I want to see if the, wonderful. So if you come down here to digital object identifier, this is another permanent tag that goes on electronic articles. And you can use it to get back to anything that you found. So you can either copy the DOI, and by the way, that's a great piece of information for your works cited page. Most works cited pages in APA or APSA do require a permanent link or a DOI. We're going to copy this permalink here, come over here, and that's our results. Now that's helpful, but I don't know what terms I used to find that. So I'm going to go back. Before I go back, I want to show you the other way to save things. So there's the permanent link, and then I also always email these to myself. All right. So you can push the email button. You enter your email address. I'm very practical about how I label these. I'm not going to put the subject, the title of the article in there. This just takes too much time. So as you can see, I label them by number. So this is article 1. If I was looking for other kinds of research than a scholarly article, I might call it something else. I might call it data 1, or I might call it meta-analysis 1, and that can help me organize those on the other end a little better. Article 1 is fine. A little trick for all of you that will help you beautifully in your process. If you will go over to the right-hand side of this gray box under citation format and come down to APA, this email will not only send you the permanent link, the information here on the detailed record, and often the attached PDF. It will also send you a, most of the time, correctly formatted citation, which is just a relief to have, right? So we would hit send, and then this would go to me, and it says, yay, I have a confirmation. Now I can go back. So I'm thinking this has been a fruitful search. I want to make sure that I remember these terms. Or let's say it's 6:40 and I only gave myself 45 minutes today. That's all the time I had to do this search, but I want to save all of these results. You can do that, and it's right over here at the top of the page of any search results under the share button. Click there, and there's another permalink. You'll notice this permalink, when I copy and paste it, is going to be much, much bigger than the individual one. Yes. So this is all 2,400 of those results, and most importantly, it contain when I would click back on that result, it would also tell me what language I used to find it. It would give me these two search boxes. Great way to save your work, especially if you're pressed for time, or you find yourself having to do searches in little short periods. Okay, so now I have the full result saved, and I have this first article that I was interested in saved here as well. And now I just go back into my search and I continue on. I read titles, I read subject headings, I go down. The full text ones are fairly easy. Has anybody run into trouble with the get it for me? And are you guys all very clear about what get it for me is and what it's for? I'm going to assume that's a no. we will
I've
we will
seen it,
cover.
but I haven't used it.
You have it. Wonderful. Yay. I love it when people say, no, I don't know what that is. It so even the largest libraries, and OLLU is a very healthy one, but not one of the biggest ones in the country, certainly. No library has everything. What we do have that is very valuable is an agreement with other academic libraries to share our resources. And that's what Get It For Me is. So this database is telling me that this article exists, but that little tab down there is telling me we haven't paid for access to it. That doesn't mean we can't get it for you. And most importantly, it doesn't mean it does mean we can get it for you for free. I'm sure those of you who have used Google Scholar or other outside search engines have often, I bet you've run into paywalls where you can see the article title and maybe the abstract, and then it says, give me $25 and I will give you access for 2 hours to this article. I'm sure you've all seen that. I want you to promise me that you will never, ever, ever pay for research, because you don't have to. You can always give that $25 to me and we will go to lunch and do a research search. Okay. So that is not a requirement, by the way. But all of your academic research is free and available through the library, even if it means that we have to do the Get It For Me process. So let's just walk through that very quickly. So I've seen this article. I'm going to click on the title. And here again, it gives me in that detailed record all of that information that I might be interested in, the abstract, the authors, the date, all of that good information. Again, I would save it as a permalink before I did anything else and put it in my results. I would then email it to myself. That takes a very short period of time. And because I know the email is not going to send me the full text because of this little icon over here, I'm going to go to the Get It For Me button. This is pre-programmed to automatically do the data entry for just about every piece of information you'll need. And there we are. So there's me, and this is my account with the library. It already gives me all of the relevant information that our library loan librarian will need to find this for you. You don't need to fill any of this out yourself. You're just asking for a copy. You do not have to pay anything for it. You can ignore that. You can also ignore this, because our policy at OLLU is to make sure that you get it as quickly as possible. If it's a single article, as this one is, generally our turnaround is 24 to 48 hours and no more. It will come to you as a link electronically that you can then download and read immediately. It doesn't come through the mail. Now, if it was a book, a physical book, that's a slightly different kind of source. Those also come for free. So don't be afraid of asking for any kind of source material you need. All of it comes for free from the library. Free, free, free. I feel like one of those commercials. You'll see that it has filled out all of my patron information down here. I would just submit this request and sit back and wait for this to come to me within the next day or two. Okay? Wonderful resource. Now, if you're searching 2 days before your assignment is due, Get It For Me is probably not your best option. In that case, then, what we may do is add another refinement to our search. If you are pressed for time, or you just don't want to have to look at those other outside resources, under that same limit button where we looked at date and scholarly, you can click full text. And you'll see just how much of a dent that made. We went from well over 2,000 to now 700 plus articles, and these will all be full text available from OLLU itself. Okay, so that's a great way, especially under a time crunch, to limit your results, especially if you've already gotten a very healthy result. From this point forward, I would continue then to mess with and play with some of these terms. For instance, I might take out a bunch of this. I noticed when I typed in elder abuse earlier that it started to give me that. So maybe I can remove this altogether. Okay. And maybe I can go back to adding my other, some of my other variables. This might be one that I would try. Remembering that all of these refinements will stick, okay? If I do it this way, if I start the search over, it will eliminate all of those. But if I stay within these search refinements, you'll see all of those are still in place, and that's still a healthy number. Yay! So that's a very good indication that there's healthy research on this topic. And then these are going to obviously be, rather than maybe interventions for individuals, it looks like this one's family-centered. Primary health care. So, and then again, looking at the subject headings, we look at who is being studied. This one, as an example, focuses on women as a gender. Hospital-based intervention. So there's many ways that this will go. What you'll notice is even from article to article, the direct focus of the article is different. They all contain these similar or same subject headings, but the content is still going to be diverse. And that is where your critical thinking comes in and says, this one would fit within the context of what I want to write about. This one might not. Okay. And so that's part of the search process, is eliminating the ones that seem least relevant to the direction and focus that you're going to write, and focusing on the ones that seem to be the most relevant. In general, if I'm writing a paper that has a, let's say, 15 source requirement, I will, in this part of the process, collect at least 20 to 25, knowing that not every single one of those will fit perfectly or actually contain the information that I need. If I'm lucky enough to find that many, then I move right on to the next stage, which is assessment of those pieces of information, the organization of them into some of the subtopics of my paper, and then we go to town on the writing part. If you're not finding everything that you need, or you find that there's a gap in your research, once you've done that initial assessment, you can come back here, and because you've saved some of these large-scale searches, you know what territory you've already covered and what new territory we could go into. So we've covered this territory, and let's say we're not finding something on the assessment part so much. Okay, So we would want to remove this, and we might add assessment here. And again, you can see the database is suggesting several options for us. And now we're looking at a quite different set of results. By changing one term, intervention to assessment, we're now looking at a whole fresh set of possible sources for our paper. Okay? That is pretty much the search process for any of these discovery processes. Once we have a sample worksheet of this kind, then I would go back in and start doing the next steps. But I've reassured myself now that I have my work saved. I'm not going to have to recover territory that I covered the first time in getting those original results. And now I don't have to mess with the databases anymore. Now you can focus on the assessment and the writing of the actual paper. So I do like to have a process that keeps the discovery process discrete and separate from the writing process. And knowing that I have all the tools necessary to get going on that next step. Does anyone have any questions about what we've been covering today? No questions. I was either that brilliant or we're all that tired. Either way, my final little bit to you would be if this process is one that I go through multiple times a day on virtually every topic that students at OLLU are interested in studying. And I know that when you see somebody do it, it looks very simple. It looks very easy, and the frustrations were minimized, and yay, we got wonderful results. I absolutely promise you it never works that way for me either. Not really. And I'm always having to manipulate that search process and be creative about what kind of language I'm using and where I'm looking to get the resources that I need. That is normal. Don't be overly frustrated or irritated by that process. If you hit a wall where you're just not finding anything at all, or what you're finding just is not relevant to your topic of interest, then that's the time that you come to us. Just like any good intervention, librarians are here to get you over those research problems and get you forward on a really good path. And that happens on this front page of the Silterfuss Library website here under Ask a Librarian. And you'll see here, you can always ask a quick question under chat when we are online. If not, you can send us an email question. You can also make a research appointment. This is a one-on-one. There's me, and there is my colleague, Mario, and these are all the times we're available. You pick your day, you pick your time, and that's it. That's how easy that is to make an appointment with us. If none of those times are available for you, please do reach out to us by email, because there you are, the library.ollusa.edu. You can also contact me or Mario individually, and you can find that under About Us and the staff directory. And there we are. You can make an appointment, or you can email me directly. I do and am happy to work with students in the evening hours or on the weekends with sufficient scheduling ahead of time, because I know that for many of you, you're working full-time jobs, you're taking care of families. That is the reality of school for all of us at certain points. And so if you need a special time, either Mario or myself are always happy to find a time that works in your schedule as well. And we're both there. Okay. Thank you so much for coming today. If you have any further questions, you can always email us. You feel free to make use of our services in any way that is helpful to you. And thank you so much for coming.